For decades, Canada's presence in Asia was diplomatic, polite, cautious, almost invisible. But in 2025, that silence ended. On November 2nd, Manila and Ottawa signed a historic pact, the Status of Visiting Forces Agreement, or SOVFA, marking Canada's first ever military access deal in the entire Asia-Pacific region. It's a partnership that could redefine both nations' roles in the South China Sea and redraw the regional map of deterrence. The signing ceremony in Manila was brief, but its implications are vast. The agreement grants Canadian forces legal entry, basing rights, and operational access for joint exercises and humanitarian missions in Philippine territory. In plain terms, Canada now has the green light to train, deploy, and operate alongside the Philippine military on land, air, and sea. And one location stands out above all others: Palawan, the island closest to the flashpoints of the West Philippine Sea. The front line where Chinese Coast Guard vessels have repeatedly used water cannons, lasers, and blockades against Filipino supply ships. With the SOVFA in place, Canadian boots could soon stand on those same shores. Their ships could patrol alongside Philippine vessels, a message to Beijing that the Indo-Pacific is no longer a two-player game. For the first time, Canada's red and white flag may soon fly beside the Philippine tricolor, and the stars and stripes forming a new axis of allied presence in one of the most contested waters on Earth. Behind the ceremony lies a strategy years in the making. Ottawa's Defense Review in 2023 warned that the Indo-Pacific defines the future of global security. Since then, Canada has quietly expanded its deployments from naval visits to Japan, 2 freedom of navigation patrols near Taiwan. But until now, it lacked an anchor, a regional partner with both legal access and moral legitimacy. That anchor is now the Philippines. Defense analysts describe this deal as the northern link in an expanding security lattice, connecting U.S., Australian, Japanese, and now Canadian forces through a network of shared bases and agreements. Together, they form what one think tank called an Arc of Transparency, a coalition that monitors, documents, and deters coercive acts in real time. The SOVFA also paves the way for joint maritime domain awareness operations, including satellite intelligence sharing, anti-submarine training, and search and rescue coordination in the South China Sea, Canada. Known for its cutting-edge radar and Arctic surveillance systems, brings technology that complements the Philippines' expanding coastal radar network and the U.S. Indo-Pacific Maritime Security Initiative. To Canada, this agreement is more than symbolic. It is a declaration that the Pacific, not just the Atlantic, now defines its defense identity. And to the Philippines, it is another layer of insurance, a partnership built on shared democratic values and mutual respect. Officials from both sides describe the pact as legally balanced, operationally flexible, and strategically transparent. It allows Canadian forces to enter the Philippines for training, disaster response, and defense cooperation, but under Philippine command, authority, and jurisdiction, a critical clause that maintains national sovereignty. In other words, partnership without dependence. But the timing of this deal is no coincidence. It comes just months after China intensified its harassment of Philippine vessels at Ayungin Shoal, and only weeks after joint U.S.-Philippine patrols began facing electronic jamming and laser interference from Chinese ships. Each new incident has underscored the same reality that the Philippines needs not just allies, but active ones. By adding Canada to its defense circle, Manila sends a signal that alliances are multiplying faster than pressure can divide them. The once isolated archipelago has become a hub for collective deterrence, a security hinge, connecting North American power to Southeast Asian waters. Satellite images released by the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative already show expanded patrol routes around Palawan, some now marked with Canadian identification codes. Maritime trackers reveal that a Royal Canadian Navy frigate, the HMC's Vancouver, recently transited through the Bashi Channel, near northern Luzon, conducting communication exercises with Philippine and U.S. units. These are the first visible signs of a deepening partnership. Discreet, deliberate, but unmistakable. Canada's entry into the region also aligns with the Five Eyes Intelligence Alliance, which includes the US, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, effectively creating a new layer of interoperability across the Pacific. In effect, the Philippines has become the southern gateway of North America's extended defense perimeter. Still, the SOVFA faces challenges. China has already accused Canada of interfering in regional affairs and warned that any attempt to militarize the South China Sea will meet firm opposition. Beijing's statements mirror the rhetoric once reserved for Washington, suggesting that Canada's involvement is already reshaping Beijing's calculus. But for Manila, this is not provocation, it's protection. Every agreement, from EDCA with the United States to reciprocal access with Australia and Japan, is built on a single foundation: the right to defend national waters under international law. The SOVFA adds another dimension, one rooted in mutual trust and humanitarian capacity. Canada has extensive expertise in disaster relief, cold weather logistics, and peacekeeping operations, all crucial for an archipelagic nation facing both typhoons and tension. Officials also hint that the deal may expand into joint marine environmental monitoring, a subtle but strategic way of reinforcing presence under civilian missions. Because in the gray zones of the South China Sea, humanitarian cooperation often becomes the quiet shield of sovereignty. For Canada, engagement in the Indo-Pacific also means balancing domestic priorities. With a growing Filipino diaspora, over 1 million citizens of Filipino heritage, the relationship carries social and cultural depth rarely seen in defense pacts. It's not just about strategy. It's about shared people, shared values, and a shared ocean. The agreement also positions Canada within the US-led Indo-Pacific deterrence framework, complementing Japan's rearmament, Australia's submarine ambitions, and South Korea's missile defense expansion. The cumulative effect: a multi-layered deterrent wall encircling the South China Sea, with the Philippines at its center. Critics, however, warn of potential escalation. Some fear that too many external militaries could increase the risk of miscalculation. But proponents argue the opposite, that clarity of commitment reduces uncertainty, and that alliances built on transparency deter far more than they provoke. The Philippines has learned this lesson through hard experience. From the Scarborough Shoal standoff in 2012 to the Iongan Shoal blockade of 2023, isolation was vulnerability. Today, integration is strength. In many ways, the Canada-Philippines FA symbolizes the evolution of Manila's foreign policy, from reactive diplomacy to proactive defense posture. It reflects a nation no longer pleading for attention, but choosing its partners and shaping its own security architecture. As the ink dries on this new alliance, one image captures its essence: a Philippine Coast Guard vessel docked beside a Canadian warship, both flags fluttering against a gray horizon. Two nations, worlds apart in geography, now bound by the same sea lines of freedom. Analysts call this moment a quiet revolution in Indo-Pacific geopolitics. For the first time, Canada has crossed its traditional comfort zone to stand with an Asian democracy facing coercion. And the Philippines, long underestimated, has become a diplomatic magnet, where global powers converge not to compete, but to cooperate. The SOVFA is more than a defense agreement. It's a declaration that the balance of power is no longer limited to East and West. It now runs through Manila. In an age of hybrid threats and shifting tides, alliances like this are not built in response to war, but to prevent it. Because stability is not a gift, it's an architecture. One constructed through shared risk, shared training, and shared conviction. As 2025 unfolds, expect the South China Sea to grow even more crowded, not with conflict, but with cooperation. And in that new maritime order, the Philippine flag will not stand alone. It will stand beside Canada's, a symbol that distance is no barrier when freedom is the shared horizon. Because every new alliance, every joint drill, every signature on a treaty, they all say the same thing in different languages: that the seas belong to no empire, but to those who guard them together. And as the waves crash against Palawan's coast, the world will remember November 2nd, 2025. The day Canada joined the wall of allies defending the heart of the South China Sea.